Hello my friends, who's ready for a little chocolate? We're going to be talking about the new Better Than Chocolate palette from Too Faced today. Also a couple of other products in that collection, the eyeliner and the Plumping gloss as well. I will be trying everything on in this video. I'm going to be talking about some past looks that I've done. This is in no way a first impression. I have a handful of different looks that I've tried with this palette, and I'm excited to share my thoughts. Anytime a new palette from Too Faced comes out, I think there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of assumptions made, you know, by people who are like, yeah, they're just doing the same thing over and over again. And then there's those who are truly considering purchasing it. And I just want to give you some info on this thing. So it has the normal like shape and size of a lot of the Too Faced, you know, their major palettes that they've done, like Cinnamon Roll or the other chocolate bar palettes. But unlike the original chocolate bar, does anybody remember that first one? And then even the semi-sweet that came after that, those were actually like a little bit cooler palettes, especially the first. And this one, you know, has a lot of bronze. And I think they're trying to give us a couple shades that splash a little bit in here with some color. But overall, we're seeing a very warm tone palette, lots of bronze. 7 out of 18 shades are matte, but they've given us a pretty good range of those mattes. And then shimmers range from super duper light to very dark and everywhere in between. We do have a mirror inside this palette. It does have that chocolatey scent. Oh, did I just put my nose in it? I can smell the chocolatiness, but I feel like it's more faint than the old ones were. My number one issue with this palette, and it's just from my perspective, Too Faced probably has their own numbers, their own research. They know what hits with people. They know what misses with people. They have reasons why they did what they did with this palette. But when I look at it, the first thing I thought when I saw pictures of this online, I thought about their Cinnamon Swirl palette. And the basic color scheme is really, really similar in both. You know, you have kind of a plumminess in here. Even that same sort of dark shimmery plum, you know, that's in this one, it's also in this one. There's a little bit of a purpley pinky pop in this one. Here they've got a purpley and a bluish pop, but the overall basis for the look, you know, you're going to be setting your look up with matte warm browns, and then you're going to be layering up some bronze, and you know, on a fun day you might use one of the colors, but overall a really similar look here. And this just came out like a year ago. So I see a lot of overall repetition. When we start looking at the nitty gritty, my issue becomes inconsistency with the shimmers. The mattes I think have worked really well for me. I've worked with every shade in the palette, and I feel like the mattes just do what you expect them to do. They're smooth, they're blendable, they layer on top of one another with ease. But then the shimmers, like this one called Milk It, you know, that one can amount to kind of a sheer glaze. It can be sort of hard to build up. The one called Ooey Gooey up here, which outside of this super light one, you know, that may be a shade that a lot of people are drawn to have some lightness on the lid. And it's just such a soft glaze. It requires work. It requires work to be seen, be really visible on the eyes. But yet I do end up with fallout when I'm in that process of really trying. Reality Chalk over here. It's basically like we've got two kind of rose goldy types of shades. Reality Chalk is just real flaky and has to be built, and then the other one is smooth and creamy, and what you see is what you get. That one's called I'm the Dessert. Another shade that I really have to build in order to see it is this one called Sugar Rush. You know, just the lightest purpley glaze. And again, it can look pretty if you're willing to build it, but you gotta like put this palette in context and think back to like other things you've used. Like I got a couple fairly new LA Girl palettes, and man, they don't make me work at all. I think about stuff from Sydney Grace, stuff from Profusion. I think about palettes from Huda, and where I feel like the glazy shades in a Huda palette are more intentional, you know? They can be sheer, but they can be built with more ease. These, it's like you're kind of pushing them uphill, like go, go, do it. And there are some shimmers that are really smooth. This What the Fudge down here, Skinny Dipped, which I use in today's look, is a nice copper. The I'm the Dessert shade that I just used, this gold. Those are all strong and what I would like to see out of a shimmery shade, but it's just kind of unfortunate that not everything is that way, you know? Now, in terms of the pops of color, what will you really see color-wise? Well, we do have this plummy shade over here, Midnight Snack. I'm really glad this color is in the palette. It is a deep shimmer, and it's smooth, and it's not flaky, and I've used it in a lot of looks, and I really like it. I'm glad that's in here. It doesn't show up like a real glaring purple, couple, but you know, it's nice and it does fuse well with the coppery colors, okay? Plum and copper, those shades always look beautiful together on the eyes. So that's nice that that's in here. This color punch, like I said, very, very sheer. You can see it if you're willing to definitely prime your lids and you're willing to build it. Even so, it's light. This color down here called Bless Your Tart, I actually did a look with that one. Just popping that on the lid and letting it roll, and it does show up. You feel like maybe in swatching it that it's gonna be sheer. It's not a super like a really smooth buttery texture, but yet it does have a good amount of color payoff. So you do have a real true blue in here. The only other thing kind of outside of the classic warm neutrals in this palette is this one down here, this olivey shade. And while I like the texture, it's very murky on the eyes. I did a look really trying to use a lot of that one day, and it just comes off real soft, almost taupey. Okay, so not a lot of green there, but not a bad feeling shade by any means. It's nice. They just didn't design it to be a really intense color. Another thing I did want to say, I know I've really talked about the fact that this palette is rooted in the warm browns, but you can kind of sidestep that a little bit. This color here is actually really nice in the crease, and it's a little more rosy. It's the one called Bite Me. This dusty rose can be used to set up the crease. You can work with like this deeper brown that's not very warm. This one's not super warm as well. You can kind of work those in for some added depth. Your plum here you have also, if you're willing to build up ooey gooey, you know, you can kind of ultimately form a look that's not super warm out of this palette, or, you know, of course pull in the blue or something. But a lot of times when I pick this up, I'm just thinking, you know, I'm seeing these, I'm seeing all the copper and warm brown, and I just know that that's very likely the direction I'm going to take things. And I do feel like it's just a repeat with some minor changes, you know, compared to this one. And I really like the Cinnamon Swirl palette, actually. I rediscovered it like partway through the year and was like, yeah, I'm enjoying this one. This palette I know has a couple shades that aren't like world's greatest shimmers either, but I do love these mattes over here. And I've created some pretty looks with this one, and I just feel like there's a ton of overlap between those two palettes. Before I get into the look that I'm going to show you today, I do want to show you a few of the looks I've already done. I try to journal this stuff in my phone, especially if I know like a review is coming. After swatching the palette and seeing kind of where the weaknesses were in the palette, the first look I did, I took some of those weaker shades like ooey gooey, and I really wanted to add that to my look. Here you can see, I think, a very strong like crease and outer corner. Like I enjoy that. I thought it applied well. And then the shimmer, while it looks pretty enough, I layered a lot to get to this point, and I still think it looks kind of soft. So not a bad look by any means. And I really do like the way things kind of radiate out from the crease when you see the eye open. Like it looks pretty, but it would have been nice if some of those shades did more what I was expecting them to do. Moving on, I did a look with the blue. I really wanted to see how this would perform, and I used it on like the inner half of my lid and wanted to see like, does it really look good blending in with some of these deep browns and plums as the accessory colors? And I think it does. I used a lot of that darkest plum with a little bit of shimmer on like the outer part of my lid, blended that inward with the blue, and had some of the warm browns in the crease, and I actually thought it was really pretty. Next look I did, I wanted to work with the gold in this palette, and I thought it actually did quite well. It looks so pretty, sort of supported and surrounded by those deep rich browns. I will say I've tried more intense, more richly like foiled looking golds in other palettes. Not saying this is bad, but it's kind of soft looking really on the eyes. And then guys, I did a look with a lot of the olive on the lids, and it's crazy. I opened up the picture, I'm like, what shade was that? Oh, that was the Olive Day. And it really comes off with this murky taupey grayish look actually. So that's pretty much all over the lid in these pictures, with the plum in the outer corner and some warm browns blended up into the crease. Not a bad look. I'm not saying it's not pretty, but it's just when some of us see olive in a palette, we get a little bit excited and we're like, oh, there's going to be some olive in here, and then it doesn't really look like olive whatsoever. So now today I'm going to show you this look, which incorporated one of the copper shades that I didn't think I really showed off in any of those other pictures. So here you go. Here's the tutorial. All right, friends, I've already got my primer on my eyes, and I'm going to go into this shade right down here called Nice Buns. It's a matte, kind of like a soft warm brown, and I'm going to use that to start out in my crease. And I really feel like I've had a pretty consistent experience with the mattes in this palette. I know what they're going to do. They're pigmented, they're good. I don't really have any complaints about them. I like the way they blend and layer with one another. Feel free to let that come up a little bit higher. Then I'm just going to take another brush and go into this color called Buttercream, which I actually really like on the border of what you're doing. It's not like insanely light, but it's really good for blurring the edge of any mid-tone color because it's just slightly up from the mid-tone shades in the palette. So it really smooths and kind of blurs. And then if you're like, okay, but I want a legit highlight there, this shade has shimmer up in the corner. And so I might grab just a little bit of that and kind of glaze that over the brow bone area. And it'll just be like a gentle sheen, but nothing super loud. Then I'm thinking let's deepen it up slightly in the crease. Let's go to Cake My Day right here. This kind of rich terracotta type color. Maybe I should say rusty brown. And as you can see, I'm just easily layering that up, and the crease is getting a little deeper, but we still have that nice gentle fade out. So as far as the mattes go, there's like a couple of deep ones outside of what I just used there. There's a couple that go darker, this one and this one down here, and they're both browns. So you really set up in this palette with warm browns, bronzy shades. Okay, there we are. One of my favorite shades in the palette in terms of the darkness though is actually this shade up here that has shimmer, and it's called Midnight Snack, and it's kind of a plummy color, and I feel like that kind of shade does play nicely with a lot of the bronzy tones in this palette. So I do want to show that one going on. I'm just going to pick it up with my flat Morphe brush here. Like I said, even though it has some shimmer, it has a nice bit of depth. It just looks really pretty, like going into the crease, blending up a bit. So I'm just patting it on. I can really feel that brush tapping my lid, but also I can feel it reaching the crease and pressing into the crease as well. So when I go in with another brush to do a little blending, I'm going to pick up that shadow and it's going to move around a little bit. You know what I mean? It's going to really become incorporated into the crease just by what I'm doing right here at first. So as you can see, it's not like a real glaring purple. I don't think anybody would expect that, seeing how plummy it looks in the pan, but it's just a nice rich plum. Then I go back to that original crease brush and I can smooth it out and kind of work it around in the crease just a little bit more. I even like to use my small pointed brush with that shade, again, Midnight Snack. Take a little bit and we can kind of shape our outer corner somewhat. See a really nice bit of depth from that color, and it merges with the warmth really well. And then just keep that sort of semi-bare blending brush handy, a separate brush from what you use in the crease, and that can again smooth your edges just a little. Now today I want to do something on the lid a little different than what I have done before. This copper, like this one swatched out well, but I'd like to see how it actually looks on the lid, sort of side by side with my plum. So I'm going to take a different little flat brush here, pick some of that up, and just dab that across. See, some shimmers are just so what you see is what you get, like a really familiar, nice, soft, shimmery texture, and then some just don't give it to you the same way. That's a little bit of the frustration with this palette for me. I just feel like for the price you pay, you should get consistency, especially when like so many lower cost brands can do that and are doing that. And I do understand trying to have some variety in the palette and maybe having some finishes that are a little bit more like maybe a topper or whatnot. Personally, I do value pigmentation most, I think. So like we go to this shade Ooey Gooey, which I think is a pretty important color in the palette because outside of the white, it's like your lightest shimmer. If you want more of like a spotlight look, you go to that. And it's a little bit flaky, a little bit harder to work with, kind of makes you feel like, well, I gotta go in with my finger if I really want it to show. So I'm applying that inward, and once I used my finger, I got more of a seeing the color type of application. But it's hard because, you know, that inner corner, I really would like to use a brush, but the brush just doesn't build it up the way I want it. And then I come in with my finger and you kind of have to work with it and really pack it on. You'll get there, it just takes a little more doing sometimes. And it's the same thing with this Reality Chalk shade, you know, like the shade can be kind of thin and sheer. This shade Milk It too is another example of a color that just gives you like this soft glaze. And like I'd like it to go around the inner corner and really brighten, but it's just thin, kind of hard. It'll build to a little something eventually, but I don't know. As you can see, I've gotten some sparkly fallout now on the side of my nose from it. Then I'm going to take my little smudge brush here from Sigma, and I'm going to go to Cake My Day again. That was another shade I put in the crease. And we're just going to smudge some of that mid to deep brown right there on the outer part of the lower lash line. You see where you put your brush first is where the most product goes. I always say that. But then you can ease it inward some. Okay, and there's our shadow look for today. Again, a little more on the coppery side than what I'd done in the past because we did that skinny dip color as sort of our showcase lid shade. But now we're going to move on to the liquid liner pen. It's the Better Than Sex Easy Glide waterproof liquid liner in chocolate. So I'm really familiar with the original version of this pen that is pink in the outer packaging. This one came in my PR package and it's super precise. The point almost feels even more pointy than what I remember my original pen being, but it is a brush tip and I feel like I have a ton of control. And just know that the brown color you get here is so dark it's nearly black. It's not like you're gonna see a massive difference if you're used to always wearing black liquid liner. It's a super dark brown, and I'm just gonna do a little wing here. Quite easy, no problem. I mean, it makes a nice little extra addition to this line. I think it makes sense to have this in the chocolate collection. But there are other brown liquid liners out there. You know, it's not your only option. You don't have to spend Too Faced money to get this look. Pretty sure Milani has one of their long wearing liners that is also in a brown shade. This brush tip almost feels like it's poking me just a little bit, like it's a little bit sharp. It's nothing terrible and I love the precision, but I do feel the pokiness. So now that I've done that, I'm going to do some mascara and lashes, and then I'll be back to show you this product in action. And so I finished off the eye look with kind of a dramatic lash there. Actually, it was a little bit bigger than I was expecting it to be, but I also put mascara on the lower lashes as well, and I even put a little brightening liner there in my lower inner rim. I used to do that all the time, and I try not to do it as much anymore just in case it's not great for my eyes, but the ABH Duo liner, you know, it really does brighten things up if you feel like your eyes are looking a little tired. So as far as this goes, this lip injection Maximum Plum in the chocolate plump shade, this is probably my favorite part of this collection as far as what I've tried. I really like that they put one of these out and it has like a little more color to it. I showed this in a little swatch in a past video as well. While it's still a sheer product, it has that shimmer that makes it just show on your lips more, and I've really enjoyed layering this on top of different lipsticks or lip liners. One of my definite faves, and you've seen this on me in the video where I hauled all this stuff, the Revlon Color Stay Lip Liner in Nude. That's a really pretty pairing, but I thought today I'd show you something a little bit deeper. I thought I'd go with my Revlon Lip Liner in Chocolate and just get this on all over my lips, and then you're going to see that pretty like glossy reflective shine on top. And now it does have, I'm just getting something to wipe this off, it does have a tingle. You won't feel that the entire time the product sits on your lips, but you'll feel it within like the first few minutes that it's sitting there. And I think it's pretty intense, but I also feel like it does do something. I feel like it does plump my lips. Yeah, Chocolate is kind of a dark shade. Is it fall yet? But these are lip liners that truly last and last. When you put a gloss on top, you can work against the staying power just a little bit. Anything with a major liquidy component, putting it on top of a long wear product just knocks down the wear time overall a little bit, but you still will have something clinging on. And I think that's why I always love these lip liners, is that despite what I put on top, even if they do lose some intensity inevitably, there's still quite a bit hanging around. So now we go in with this. You saw the swatch of how it just looks as is, but on top of something a little deeper. It's so pretty. And the smell, oh, sweet, just a little bit chocolatey. Smells kind of like Cocoa Puffs. I feel really 90s with this look actually, because I would always want to approach those neutral lipsticks and also things that had shimmer, and this gives that shimmer on top, but I still think it's pretty. And then now here it is starting in. After you get it all applied, you start to feel that little bit of a burny tingle, but I do feel it effectively plumps the lips. And just to let you know what else is on my face today, I'm wearing the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation and the NARS Soft Matte Concealer in the little pot. I put on my Wet n Wild Translucent Loose Powder. I'm wearing my original like Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer in the dark option. That's what I kind of contoured with. And then my blush is Mellow Wine from Wet n Wild. I'm just going to add a little bit more of that, just given the depth of the eye and lip. I think we can handle a little more cheek as well. Yes. Oh, that color looks so pretty with this look. And the shirt too. Oh, highlighter is from the Beauty Bakery Milk and Honey palette. And that is my look featuring the 3 new chocolate products from Too Faced that I got. So guys, I guess the sum up on this is, knowing what I know now about this palette, it's definitely not one of my faves from Too Faced. I want less of a copycat feeling palette compared to other recent releases. And also, let's not forget, Sunset Stripped came out really not that long ago, and that really had a lot of warm, coppery, bronzy things happening. Again, they know what people buy, they know what's popular, I get it. But I think in an 18 shade palette, there's still a lot of room for originality and new choices to be made, even if you want to keep it somewhat in the warm family. I think Too Faced is all about sticking in a shade or two like this just for looks, like just for the picture, you know, of the palette, and they don't always perform. And in this case, this kind of performed, this really didn't. I want a little more quality, a little more originality. That's all I'm saying on that. It's definitely not a highly recommended thing from me. Now, the liner pen was nice. It is kind of a sharp little tip. You know, it's very, very pointed. It's a rich, intense, nearly black brown. If you don't want to get a high-end liner like that. Essence came out with a pen, a brown liner pen recently, but also you can look to the Milani 17-hour wear. I think it's called Stay Matte 17-hour wear, and those wear like iron, last through childbirth, and they have like black, deep brown, all the things. My favorite part of the collection, really what I'm loving and continuing to want to pull for, is actually this lip injection. Who would have thought this ended up being my favorite thing? I've never been super in love with the lip injection glosses, but I really like this one for its sheen. It looks really pretty topping off different liners. Like I said, Revlon Color Stay Lip Liner in Nude is a top fave. I think it looks pretty on top of chocolate as well. Actually has a plumping effect. Doesn't feel too annoying or sticky on the lips. Yeah, that's my favorite thing here, okay? So thank you guys so much for watching. I would love your input in the comments section if you've tried these products, because I'm just one person, you know, I'm giving my opinion on these things, and you may or may not agree with that, and that's fine. Bottom line, I can do some good looks with this palette. I can do some things that I think turn out looking pretty, but as the one sitting there putting it on, knowing about the process, knowing about how hard I worked to get to that finished product, I know there are many other palettes that I don't have to work that hard with, okay? That's my story. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you again soon. I love you. Bye.